I think you guys probably have the best tour.
Thank you.
It's America's favorite tour.
I've always found that anytime you have any quality ingredients you put in, and you have good brewing techniques, the beer is going to taste good no matter almost what you do.
It's a community. It's a very tight-knit community. You have the name, you have the ingredients, and the overall brand. You know, you have to emotionally connect with somebody.
This episode with Lakefront Brewery was filmed in Milwaukee on July 31st, 2024, as part of my attempt to build a healthy backlog and keep episodes releasing as I dealt with a busy personal schedule. Sadly, one of the gentlemen in this interview, Michael Stodola, passed away suddenly in October before we had a chance to release this episode. After consulting with both his family and the Lakefront Brewery family, I'm proud to have their blessing to release this full, unedited recording that I believe really showcases Michael's love for Lakefront, Milwaukee, and the art of craft beer. This episode is dedicated to Michael and his generosity, kindness, and passion. I'm honored to have known him. Hug your loved ones, grab a beer, and raise a glass to Michael. Cheers. I'm Alan Kogan. Join me as I highlight small businesses with interviews on site at distilleries, breweries, and more. My mission is to share the stories of the awesome people behind the craft. Welcome to Crafted Conversations. Well, Russ, Mike, thank you for having me here at Lakefront.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, Lakefront in Milwaukee, my hometown. So whenever I'm in Milwaukee, I love to stop by. I think you guys probably have the best tour.
Thank you.
It's America's favorite tour.
Yeah, that's right. So I kind of want to know about your story, how you both got into the business, and from day one to now you're doing tours like crazy.
Yeah, I guess the story goes is after I graduated from college in '81, I didn't have a job, so I moved in with my brother in River West neighborhood, about a mile north of here. And since he let me live there for free, I figured I'd buy him something for his birthday. And I asked him what he wanted, and he said he was thinking about making beer. So I went out to Walden Books at our Northridge shopping center and bought him a book on how to make beer. And I gave it to him thinking nothing would ever come of it, but he actually read the damn thing. And then he brewed a batch of beer, which looked like hell. I remember the floor was about as sticky as possible and stunk up the joint. And I'm thinking, God, how is this going to taste? And he gave me a bottle about after a month later, and it actually wasn't the worst beer I ever had. And I'm figuring, my brother, he wasn't really looked like he was following directions or anything with this. And I figured, if he could do it this good, I could do better. And so I decided to make a batch of beer. And I read the book, and I just graduated a degree in chemistry, so I'm understanding everything in there. And I'm thinking, this all got me excited that, wow, I could really make some good beer. So I started making beer, and he makes beer. He makes some more. I make some more. We start winning ribbons. It all goes through our head. And it's like, well, we can start a brewery. And there was no equipment back in those days.
Right.
So essentially, we started looking to see what everybody else was doing, and we found used tank yards, used dairy equipment, and we started our 55-gallon stainless steel drum brewery on December 2nd, 1987. So we're from the class of 87, which was 1 year before the class of the famed 88. But we started in an old bakery building in River West, supporting 3 different taverns in our neighborhood within barrel rolling distance. Worked our other jobs, just brewed on weekends. And after a while, became more popular, brewed some more, hired some people, brought some more equipment in, and essentially we're still doing the same thing today. Eventually, we moved down to our current location in 1998, and then started to expand down here.
Very cool. How about you? How'd you get here?
I got here because like 15 years ago, I worked for an advertising agency, and we needed to do a video, and we wanted a brewery. So I drove straight here to see if I could get someone on video. Of course, Russ was down at the brewery working like a dog. And I said, "Do you mind if you do a line for us on this video?" And he said, "Sure." And he was like really friendly and did the line, nailed it. And I said, that was great. Thank you so much. He said, "Is there anything else you need?" And I said, "Yeah, I need you to hire us to be your advertising agency." And about a week later,
Yeah, we didn't have one. So we needed something.
Right.
yeah, about a week later, he called and said, "Let's do some work." And that went on for like 6 or 7 years. And then when I was ready to leave the agency and I wanted a new opportunity, I drove here and walked in, and Russ was right there too. And I said, "Russ, I think you should hire me, and I'll do everything the agency has been doing and more." And exactly a month later, he called and said, "Okay, let's do it."
There you go.
So I mean, I can't imagine what the next milestone in my life is going to be, but I'm going to ask Russ, and I'm sure it'll happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were you guys both beer people to begin with? Was beer a drink of choice or a passion of yours prior to starting a brewery or being at a brewery?
Yeah, I drank a lot of beer. My grandfather worked for Schlitz.
Oh, okay.
Our step-grandfather worked for Schlitz way back when, so he always used to bring a case of beer home to my dad, so that was nice. I used to work at a local country club when I was a kid, caddying, bartending in the locker room, and all the old Milwaukee beer barons were there. And so
Right.
I had this connection to the old guard, so to speak, and he always kind of looked at the beer barons in Milwaukee as the local royalty in this town. It was the only royalty the town ever had. And so I always kind of looked up to these people, and you always think it's great to start a brewery, but then you never thought you could start one because everything then, back in those days, was really large, and you just couldn't get that together. But then when the craft industry started coming around in the 80s, you learned that, yes, you could start a small little brewery, and that got us excited to get to where we are, or start up.
Well, I mean, did you ever think in your wildest dreams you'd be sitting in this room and this building and this size today?
I thought we always had dreams of getting larger,
Sure.
but it didn't happen like I thought. What our original plan was, when we started this brewery, was we thought that we would start it on a shoestring, and we'd make good beer, win some awards, and some Big Daddy Warbucks or somebody would come along and say, "Oh, we're going to invest in you, and you're going to be a brewer, and we'll build this real big place." And that person never came along, and so we essentially just kept on bootstrapping ourselves to where we are, and eventually I bought out my brother, and so I'm the sole owner here, and after 37 years, and we're still installing equipment and expanding and bootstrapping ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I was happy to get where we are. But yeah, back then I just thought we'd be a big brewery. I never thought we'd have a beer hall or a restaurant. That was something that was so far from my feeling back then that we would ever do. But
Let alone in Milwaukee.
let alone in Milwaukee, yeah.
I mean, how are you both from the area originally, or?
I'm from Nebraska originally. I've lived here for almost 30 years, though.
Okay, that counts.
Yeah, I grew up in Brown Deer, suburb north.
Yeah.
But then after I graduated from college, I lived in the city all the time.
There must be a certain point of pride to be able to make something so cool in such a historic area for beer, right? I mean,
It's inspiring.
yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, this building at one time was owned by Schlitz.
Yeah.
Because the old Schlitz Brewery, the largest brewery in the world at one time, was half a mile from here.
Mm.
But even though it's a business park right now, but like you say, the town's named its ball team after the Brewers, and so there's a lot of local pride to beer.
My cat's name is Schlitz, so my dog's name is Usinger, so it all mellows out. I live in North Carolina, so I have a little bit of Milwaukee with me.
All right.
Nice.
No, that's awesome. Like I said, I always come whenever I'm home. I try to make time to come by the lakefront, or at least have lakefront in the fridge that I'm staying at.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And to watch the craft market explode like it has. I mean, I don't think anyone expected the last 20 years to happen as it did. You guys have probably one of the earlier breweries to kind of capture the craft market, especially in Wisconsin. Have you? I mean, I think what are you number one as far as craft brewery size wise in Wisconsin?
Yeah, New Glarus is larger.
New Glarus, okay.
But for other people that sell craft in the state, we're the second largest selling craft.
Okay.
In the state of Wisconsin.
Were there any things about the market that surprised you? Because everything's changing. I hear every day that now sour's king now, but hazy IPAs have gone away. Now they're coming back, and pilsner's still king. And
there's always trends,
right?
And I think that's just due to people who make a decent wage. You know, they want to bounce around and try this and try that, and some things they really like and some things they don't like so much. So that depends on when that trend kind of comes and goes. It seems like the craft business around here regionally, it's not so much on the forefront, not like, California or other hotspots, Asheville or whatever it may be, as far as the trends go. But I mean, eventually everything does come around, and we've tried, brute IPAs was a trend for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now it's cold IPAs, and I think that's kind of going away maybe. But yeah, we play very well within the market.
Are you able to? I mean, I always find it daunting for a small business, at least at the start, where you have to kind of play with, well, we have to fill the cash register, but we want to make the beer that we want to make. Are you able to kind of just experiment and have fun? Have you found yourself able to do that as your resources have become more plentiful and Lakefront's been more popular?
Yeah, well, the fact that we have a successful tap room here and restaurant, you can play a lot.
Sure.
And so, because you don't have to package it, you can just put it on tap.
Right.
And then we can see what the customers want and how fast it sells. And so we put it on. I mean, like, good example, we have like number 2 here is our Weiss beer.
Okay.
And that's what I brought up. That was just something we made here for a local German fest, but it's something we have on tap here, and I wanted to see how quick that sells. So it's a kind of combination. Let's play and make this beer, and then we can see how it goes here.
Awesome.
Yeah, the visitors to the beer hall here really tell us volumes about what they like and what they don't like.
Sure.
We recently had a beer made with the grain kernza, which is like a sustainable type of wheat.
Okay.
And we call it radical root because it is pretty radical, pretty cool thing. And it just wasn't selling.
Huh.
We changed the name to pretzel wheat. It flew off the draft line.
It was just a marketing thing.
And that was just a marketing thing. Sometimes it's the liquid, sometimes it's the name,
yeah,
or the brand. But yeah, the people that come here are excellent test market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love hearing smaller places tell me how they've gotten really good ideas from patrons who
Sure.
say, I really want this or that, and they never thought about that before. When you started this, did you have an idea of what kind of beer you wanted to make? Or you were like the thing that just like you want to sink your teeth into? I want to do a lager. I've always wanted to do a lager.
Well, we started back in 1987. Imports were kings back there, and essentially in the craft market, you were imitators. In the 90s, became innovators and started coming up with IPAs and everything. But back in the 80s, when we brew, you had your favorite beers. My brother's favorite beer was Anchor Steam. And so he made a beer that looked like tasted like Anchor Steam, which ended up being River West Stein beer.
Okay.
I drank more Pilsner Urquell than anything. So I tried to make something like Pilsner Urquell, which ended up being, we had Klisch Pilsner back then that we had. And so those were the 2 beers we first started out with. And, now every tap room's got 20, 30 beers. Back then, you only had like less than a handful,
Right.
or that you could count on a hand, and so those were the only 2 beers we had. We couldn't really make much more than that at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've also heard that there's a lot of extra care that has to be put into what I never thought would be the pilsners. People tell me all the time that pilsner is a harder beer to make because it shows so many impurities. And for my dumb brain, I'm not the biggest beer guy. I'm starting to become more of a beer guy. I was a little bit in college, and then I found Scotch. But the first brewer I talked to, they said, "Oh, our pilsner was the most difficult to make because it shows all the impurities."
It does. Well, it's a light flavor. And
Right.
So anything that doesn't come along, or gets into the beer to cause an off flavor, you're going to taste, compared if you had some big double stout or something.
Sure.
We have a bunch of roasted grains that essentially can get masked by the other hops or heavy grain or malted grains that go in there. So yes, it is a very hard beer to make from that stand. I mean, from the physical time making it, it's about as easy. Both are easy to make, but making sure you have tender, loving care with the beer, that no off flavors will come through, because they will.
Right.
Yeah, lighter beer is always tougher because there's less there to hide or
Sure.
to mask. A lot of people judge breweries across the country by their pilsner. It's like going to an Italian restaurant, and if they have, they have to have good spaghetti and meatballs or something, and that's how you judge them
Yeah.
initially. Well, pilsners are kind of one of those things where people judge the organization by what they can do.
It makes so much sense when you say it out loud, but I never would have thought that. I would have thought that, your imperial stouts are your most difficult because they have all these complex flavors, and those are probably the easier ones because they're just.
Yeah, I've always found that anytime you have any quality ingredients you put in, you have good brewing techniques, the beer's going to taste good no matter almost what you're doing. So the more you put in there, it'll become flavorful. But
Yeah.
and there'll be someone out there who's going to love it.
Right. Well, so you're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the beer capital of the world.
Yes.
And I mean, Miller, Schlitz, all this history here. And now there is, I don't know the number. You might know the number off the top of your head. How many craft breweries are in just Milwaukee alone?
It's like 30 or?
Yeah, it depends what you consider Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee County
Greater
would
Milwaukee,
be 30. Yeah, if you include the suburbs and
Sure.
everything, I think it's around 30.
I mean, just my hometown of West Allis. I tell everyone out of state that I'm from Milwaukee. No one knows what West Allis is. But West Allis, they have 2 breweries now. And that's wild and really cool to see. And I'm wondering, is that a law change thing, and a more we're more open to having more breweries around the area? Are counties and cities more amenable to helping you guys start to flourish? Or is it just kind of more people getting into it? And how much of that have you been involved with helping the guy down the road?
Well, Russ has helped almost every small brewery in town in one form or another by giving advice or an analysis to what they're doing.
Sure.
Even distilleries, Lakefront and Russ has given advice to them when they have, biology problems or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's a community. It's a very tight-knit community, and a lot of consumers don't realize that. We like other breweries, and we go there, we drink their beer, and it's kind of like the motorcycle community. You're not going to tell anybody else that they have a bad bike. If it's a good bike to them, it's a good bike.
Right.
Same with craft.
Yeah, it's kind of cool too, because as I've talked to distilleries and breweries, that sentiment is across the board. I haven't found one person who's like, I want to be king. And no one's threatened. I mean, Jim Beam and Miller Coors aren't threatened by the craft industry. They're in 230 countries, and there's a reason for that. And that's totally fine. So I think there's a wide open market for that. And that's why I love to hear, like, Russ, you helping out. That's great. What has been like the highlight of doing that? Have you had a really awesome, proud moment to help a local brewery or distillery do something that got them on their feet and got going?
Well, you do a lot of different things to help a lot of people, but then all of a sudden you don't even remember it.
Right.
And like we have one brewery I remember is Black Husky up the road here, and he needed the mayor was coming by his place to tap a firkin for, it was like his grand opening. He didn't have the spigot. And so I drove one over for him. I never thought twice about it. I was just driving that way anyway. And I drop it off, and he, talks about that forever. I remember him getting interviewed, and it's like, well, gosh, the guy came all the way up, just for my grand opening, and then dropped off a spigot so the mayor could tap a firkin. And it's like, all right, yeah. And so you have other people that come by. In fact, we're hopefully going to be buying a brewery in Kenosha soon. And I never realized it, but I talked to the guy who started that one originally, and he told me about it. It's like, okay, I guess I did. And there was incubators around here where you go and you speak to, and you don't really know who these guys are because they never started the brewery. Then all of a sudden you walk into their brewery one day and they said, oh yeah, I remember talking, you gave that speech that one time. That was like really great. It's like, okay, I guess I was something I did for someone.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's nice to be, the old guy now and then that you can. And to me, I don't want to call beer a commodity. It's an art form, but it's almost similar to a bunch of artists in there that you kind of feed off each other and what you do. You don't sit there and really go try to steal somebody. No artist is, if you don't sell a painting, you don't sit, or if somebody buys a painting from someone else, you don't sit there and say, well, I could have had that sale.
Right.
What you really try to do is create a creative atmosphere out there, so people are excited to drink different beers, to taste different things, and that's the important thing to keep this going.
On that same line of thought too, I know collaborations are a big thing in the craft market, and I know you guys have done collabs. Has there been anything that sticks out as like that was pretty awesome to do?
Well, there's always great liquid.
Yeah.
I mean, and the imagination is endless. So yeah, I think we're doing currently 4 or 5 different collaborations this summer.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like every other beer and craft. Sometimes you like it, and sometimes you absolutely love it. And we've had, we every single year we do a collab with Great Lakes over in Michigan, and it's great. It's great. It's just sharing the love.
Yeah, I love that. Well, before these beers get cold, you want to walk me through what we have here?
Yeah, I brought a little bit of everything. The number one is our Nugris Pilsner.
Okay.
That's one of the, let's say, popular or claim to fames we did here. We're the first brewery in the country to get recognition from the federal government, or an okay to brew a beer without malted barley and be taxed as beer.
Really?
That was back in 2005. Back before then, any beer had to have 25% malted barley. And I went to a trade show in Philadelphia and to a TTB booth, and I asked them, because I had some friends that wanted me to brew a gluten-free beer for them. And so I asked them about this, and they said, yeah, you're right, it's illegal. But everyone in the booth had a friend that was a celiac. And they said, well, the lead guy gave me his card, said, write me a statement of process, and I'll see what I can do with it. So I wrote a statement of process, I sent it in, and 60 days later, it's approved that we can make this beer. So then it's like, I guess I got to try making it now. So I got a bunch of sorghum syrup from Breeze Malting Company, and I made the first gluten-free beer, which ended up, we've tweaked the recipe a little bit, but it's Nugris.
Yeah.
And it's about the largest selling gluten-free beer in the country, largest exported American craft beer to Canada.
Really?
So it sells anything from Sierra Nevada or New Belgium or anything on that sort. It's always, but it's a lighter style beer, nice little hops and flavor, very refreshing. We go to beer festivals with it and don't tell people it's gluten-free, and they'll come back and have some more thinking it's so good. It has kind of a little cidery flavor to it.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd just bring that out because it's part story and part refreshing. But yeah, we've been making that since 2005 and almost going on 20 years now. And so and we've had several different versions. We have an IPA of it. We have also a Goza Rita, which won several awards at World Beer Cup Great American Beer Festival with that one. So we're very proud of those. And this is also won, I think, 4 medals at the GABF. So we've been very proud of our gluten-free beer out there.
Yeah, and New Grist is kind of what put you guys ahead of the game in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
People outside of Wisconsin know when I name drop Lakefront, they say, "Oh yeah, I've had New Grist before."
Yes.
So
it's a great door opener
Yeah.
for us out there in the country because it's gluten free and it's so good.
yeah, no, it's great. I was telling Michael off camera before we sat down and started. My dad, who's behind us, I drag him everywhere because he likes to come and watch what I do. But he's not a beer guy. Doesn't like beer. Won't drink beer. And he had a revelation with one of your servers, and she put some lemonade in New Grist. And he's not gonna go drink a bunch of beer, but he liked it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
It's almost gone.
All right. Well, that's what's called a Rattler.
yeah, yep, it's a Rattler. Yeah, and I was telling you earlier, I was kind of a beer guy in college. I had my Miller High Life and my Miller Lite and whatever, and I was like, it's college drink, it's cheap, right? Or whatever was available, your Busch lattes. But I gravitated much more into the crowd that enjoyed spirits. I love my bourbons, my scotches, my ryes. I love that part of it. And then as I got further into that crowd who likes different things, they're like, well, we also like craft beer, and here's a bunch of wild things out there. And now I've kind of gravitated back towards craft beer. It's also easier to drink a few of those rather than having a few glasses of scotch where you're going to be on your ass for the rest of the night. But I will say, other than my occasional Miller Lite when I'm watching a brewery game, just for nostalgia's purposes, I think there's a much bigger perception in the market that's changing that they want local. Have you found that you're like Milwaukee as a community is like, you know what, we would rather have you guys than Coors Light or even Miller Lite nowadays?
Yeah, there is a lot of people that love craft beer, and so we've been blessed to be favorites for a lot of people, and we get this. I know we were just out at German Fest, and we were the biggest selling beer out there.
Yeah,
and so that made me feel good that we were able to beat out other big guys out there, so to speak, in sales. But yeah, to me, it's about flavor. Back when I was in college, you had basically one style of beer. It was done very well from a lot of big guys, but it was one style. It's like eating Wonder Bread your entire life, and you just want to have something different. And so that's when craft beer came along. I started drinking imports. You started learning about all the different flavors out there that you could do and could put in beer and how great they were. And if you could make some of that, that was good. So we imitated them, and then all of a sudden, all across the country, people started innovating and just coming up with all sorts of IPAs and other types of beers.
Were there any craft breweries at around the same time you started that kind of helped turn on some light bulbs for you? Or were you kind of paving the way and you wanted to do your own thing?
No, well, back in, we started homebrewing basically 82 or late 81. And by 1984, we were going to the American Homebrewer Association meeting, which is a combination of the CBC was on there and the Great American Beer Festival. All three were rolled into one at one time.
Sure.
And so we'd go to that. And we started learning the community of brewers. And I mean, like when I said, I brewed out of 55-gallon stainless steel drums. That was from Mendocino Brewing, that was the New Albion Brewing Company, who eventually sold their equipment to Mendocino. But all of a sudden you learned, well, this guy made a brewery with 55-gallon stainless steel drums. And so that's why we came up with this. Randy Sprecher was in town. He started his brewery here in 1985. He helped me along the way. He sold me some of his old equipment to get going. So I've always appreciated that. It's been a long time. We were just the two of us in town.
Yeah.
Besides some brew pubs.
Sure.
But for packaging, that was it.
Very neat.
But no, all along the way, you got inspiration from different breweries. that you have was a pretty close-knit community back then. If somebody brewery opened in the States, you'd go visit them.
Yeah, you knew about it.
Yeah, you knew about it right away.
That's awesome. Was there a big, like, one of the beer barons or a big corporate brewery that you kind of looked up to and said, you know what, they're doing things the way I want to someday, or their pilsner is what I love?
Not really.
No, okay, that's a good answer.
No, they only have the one style of beer. They kind of
Right.
Tell us how you really feel.
There wasn't anybody that was really doing good beer. I mean, their one style of the beer they made was good.
Yeah.
And then they made it cheaper than that. And so you I mean, in a way you kind of looked at them, but they were in such a different league than we were that you really couldn't sit there and pull much inspiration from.
Yeah.
But I would say that the people that did work at the large breweries in town here, if they ever came by, they were very nice to us.
Sure.
And if I ever asked them any questions, they would tell me something. So it's not as if I never had good relations with them. But it was like, sit there and dreaming that you could ever have anything like them back then was pretty. It was quite the dream.
Sure.
You don't think you could do it.
Well, and I mean, and you still make that style of beer, and you do it well. I mean, this Pilsner's great. I think it's funny that people think about Miller Lite, Schlitz, Blatz, PBR, right? And it's just like it's all the same kind of beer.
Yeah.
And it's historical. I like going to Nashville and seeing PBR that says established in Milwaukee. That's kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
But
Nostalgia is huge.
yeah, it's massive. And I think, I mean, you guys are probably on track to be in that point. I mean, you've been around for almost 40 years, right?
Yeah.
38?
this year?
About 38 this year, yeah.
Yeah, quick math. But, I mean, I grew up with you guys, going to college here. So you're nostalgic for me. So down the road, I'm sure it's going to be, I'll be telling my great-grandson about that one brewery in Milwaukee. And you'll be around still. Well, tell me about the next one.
You want to talk about this one, or should I mention about the Weiss? This is
yeah, you can take it away.
This last weekend we had German Fest in town here, and I was like Weiss beers. We were always kind of a German brewery when we first started doing lagers, and so some of the best sellers we have and most award-winning beers are lagers, and so from that German connection, I wanted to do a Weiss for German Fest, and so we got some real yeast. I think you have some good clove banana flavor in here, about the right body. Very flavorful beer, not that high in alcohol. I'd say it's about 4.8%. That's one great thing about Weiss beer, is that it's very drinkable, very sessionable, and it's also very tasty. It has lots of flavor.
Yeah, I will say it. It's very very light, and it doesn't kind of knock you on your ass. It's which is good. It's a good summer drinker.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's complex, but yet it's really easy going down.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Put some lemonade in that and give it to Dad.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. This is This is my favorite. River West.
River
right?
West Stein.
I love it. How about that color?
Yeah, it's my old brother's homebrew recipe.
Yeah.
What he used to try to perfect back in the middle '80s, back in those days. And when we first came out with this beer, we wanted to call it River West Steam Beer, and we wanted to get sued by Fritz Maytag because it would give us some publicity. And we didn't have any money, so I didn't think that he could win anything anyway. And then we told this brewing magazine, Brewing Digest, and they misprinted the name, and instead of calling it Steam, they printed it as Stein. And my brother liked the word Stein in the beer, so he kept River West Stein beer, and that's where it comes from. We had no idea that Stein meant rocks or whatever, and so there was actually a Stein style of beer. I don't know if you ever heard this, but in Europe, in the old days, they used to heat up a bunch of rocks and would throw it in the kettle. And these rocks would then caramelize with the sugars on there. Then they would take the rocks and put it in the fermentation, and they would ferment, and it would give a smoky flavor.
Interesting.
And so there's actually Stein breweries in Germany still, I think, that you can go and find it. So a lot of people thought this is like a hot rocks beer. But it does have some roasted malt in it. But to me, it's just very well balanced.
Yeah.
It's a true German. I always think that any German beer has to have a lot of balance to it. Can't have anything out of balance. If you can drink two and you want a third one, it's a good beer. That's what this one is. Very middle palate, very flavorful. Not too much hops, not too much malt, but very good.
I've always called Stein the perfect beer. I mean, we talked about trends, and they come and go, and we drink all kinds of beer day after day here at the brewery. But then you have a Stein, and it's like, shit, that's good. You're just like reminded every single time you have one, like what a solid beer that this is.
Yeah, it transports me. I haven't had one yet this trip, so I was excited to come here. I'll probably have another one before I go. I'll probably bring a case back to North Carolina. But it transports me back, and this is going to sound so Milwaukee of me. I was on the bowling team in college. I dabbled in some amateur pro-am stuff, and I'm a bowler. And when I was bowling on like a men's league on Friday nights with one of my coaches, he loved River West, and I had never had it at that point. And so now I had like 3 or 4 every Friday night with him while we were bowling. So that transports me back to that moment. So that's my little story for you. But great, I love this beer so much. It has my heart. And what is it technically? Is it an amber or what is?
Yeah, I'd say an amber lager.
Okay.
But it is fermented at a little bit higher temperatures than a regular lager, like a steam beer.
Right.
And so that gives it a little more of a fruitiness.
Yeah.
From the yeast.
So when will you start making the rock beer?
That's something we always talk about. I'm not sure when we're going to do that one, but we almost have to. Maybe that's the 40th anniversary beer.
That'd be cool.
We'll do the rock beer then.
I'm sure our head brewer Luther will not bitch at all about getting rocks out of our equipment.
Yeah. I mean, have you been able to do anything like outlandish that is just out there wazoo crazy that actually kind of worked, or are there things out there that you still want to do that are kind of we'll get there one day?
Probably the craziest thing was the new grist. Nobody understood it back then. It's like, how can you make beer without barley?
Oh, I guess, yeah.
And everybody thought that was crazy. It's like, what are you going to do? How's it going to be? And now it's you go to the GABF and they got a style for it.
Right.
And they got awards for this category, and it's like it makes you feel good that you were the first one to try to get it going. But so that was crazy. I mean, there was other stuff you did. I mean, like one beer that didn't work well for us. I remember, we made we first started a pumpkin beer. We were the second brewery in the country to do pumpkin, and that worked out well. And then I made a cherry beer. I remember reading a Charlie Papazian article, and that went out good. Then I started looking what other beers we could do again, and I read about smoked beer from Bamberg, and so we'll make a smoked beer. And it's like, how do we get smoked malt? And there was a Ukrainian butcher down the street from us who smoked his meat, and I asked him, well, could you smoke some malt for us? And he said, sure. So I gave him a bag of malt, and he smoked it, and I brought it back, and we brewed with it. Tasted it was smoky and everything. And after we finished kegging up the beer, we tasted it, and the beer tasted just like sausage. He smoked it with his sausages when he smoked it, and I didn't realize he did that. And it was
oh no.
So we had sausage beer. I think we're the first and only brewery in the country to make sausage beer. But that was one beer that didn't work out too well, but it was kind of outlandish.
Was it drinkable? Was it bad? Was it interesting?
It was interesting, but not too many. It was like one of those things you take 2 sips of, and it's like, yeah, I had enough. that was enough.
I have an interesting story about that. So I talked to a distillery in Delaware, and they have you ever had spackle or not spackle? Scrabble.
Yeah,
Scrapple's a northern East Coast kind of breakfast food. It's just it's like Spam mixed with onions and cornmeal. It looks gross, but it tastes good. And he wanted to make a Scrapple flavored vodka. It was on a dare, and he did it. He put 40 pounds of Scrapple in his still and made it.
Wow.
And he has to, by law, the TTB makes him say non-vegan. It's actually made with meat. And it tastes okay. It's kind of savory. You put it in a Bloody Mary, it's fine. It's after a couple drinks, though, you're like, oh, something's going on here. And now imagine cleaning out that still from the equipment.
Yeah. Nasty.
So anyway, I'm all on board. As future collaboration with Usinger or Johnsonville.
There you go.
Or Clements.
The sausage beer is the future.
So what do we got for number 4?
It's our Chili Rabbit.
Chili Rabbit.
What?
This is a cold IPA. So it's a lot of cold IPAs are brewed with lager yeast.
Okay.
We still use ale yeast, but it's fermented at a colder temperature. But it's a great IPA. I mean, if it wasn't called cold IPA, it would still sell. It would still be great because it just stands up to other IPAs so well.
I don't think I've had one before. A cold IPA.
Well, now you can't say that.
Yeah, now I'm on camera. Oh, that's very different.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's balanced.
Yeah. It's an IPA, so what's the ABV on this?
I think it's 6.7.
Yeah.
Okay, so not too high for an IPA.
Yeah, it's not crazy at all.
It's about normal.
Yeah.
It's about what you want.
Yeah. Oh, that's unique. I like that a lot. And what makes the process for that so different? To be a cold IPA?
The fermentation is colder.
Oh, I see. Okay.
At a lower temperature.
Gotcha. In the name cold IPA.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure biology-wise if there's anything else that's different.
I think just the hops we used for it too. We got more tropical hop.
Sure.
I think there's Idaho 7.
Yeah. There's a Mosaic in there.
Yeah. Maybe Cashmere.
Cashmere. Yeah, I think those are the 3 hops.
Hey y'all, Alan Kogan here with Crafted Conversations. If you want to support the show and the mission of sharing the stories of craft, head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedcombos. I'd really appreciate throwing a couple bucks my way to help me pay for travel, the equipment that I use, the time that I spend editing, all the software that I use. I really appreciate any support you can give me. And if you can't afford a couple bucks, at least give me some feedback or go over to our YouTube and subscribe or follow us on Spotify. Anything helps to make sure that we share the story of craft and give these small business owners a little limelight and get them out on a platform that really showcases what they're doing. I can't do this without you guys or your support, so I would really appreciate you pitching in and helping out. So I'll see you out there, and I really appreciate it. Cheers.
One huge thing that I've learned through craft is that hops really use branding to their advantage.
Sure.
And you'll go to CBC or GABF and you'll interact with hops, and they have cool names and distinct smells and flavors. And I found out that I'm a huge Idaho 7 fan. I don't know if I ever knew that I could have a favorite hop.
Sure.
But I do.
Yeah.
It turns out.
I mean, the thing for me is fun to hear you guys talk about, because I, as a consumer of a lot of these products, I don't really think about what TLC and work and chemistry and biology go into making that glass of beer or whiskey or wine, you name the product. And it's so cool because it really is a craft. It's an artistry, and you're not just kind of, who knows, AI might take over. I don't know. I was going to say it, but you have hands on the wheel, and even as successful as you've gotten, you're able to really kind of have an influence on how, you want the beer to taste good. You want to have that name, come across as, this is coming from Lakefront, and it's good beer. Yeah,
I mean, there's such a blend of positioning what this beer is.
Mm-hmm.
You have the liquid, you have the name, you have the ingredients, and the overall brand. You have to emotionally connect with somebody, and you'll use either the hops or the flavor or the illustration on the can, whatever it may be, will, emotionally connect with someone.
Right.
So you want to, it's like any other product. You want to connect with the consumer and do something that is going to, tap into either that nostalgic thing in their head or
Right.
a flavor that they've loved for years or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so the last one. What's this?
It's a Belgian quad.
I love my Belgian.
And to tell you the
doubles.
truth, I haven't had this one yet.
Oh,
I have not had it
This is a-
either.
live reaction from the owner of the brewery.
Yeah, no. So we had some kegs we have that we put away for the sales team. And,
Okay.
And now and then, I think we brewed this a couple years ago. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, so they're basically aging. This is, unfiltered beer, so it's still there. And it's like, these beers are still good. And it's like, well, the sales team's not going to use them. Let's put them on tap here.
Yeah.
So we have this rotating line that we just keep on putting on some beers that have been well aged, so to speak. But this one, I think has. I did take a sip of it before, I should say, just making sure it was good. But I really liked it. You can tell it has the Belgian flavor. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
a little cane sugar.
That's big. What's the ABV on this?
I don't know,
That's, yeah.
I bet it's
But
over
it's-
10.
I was going to say probably at least 10.
at least 10 or so. But I just wanted to bring out something to show that we do more than just lagers or Weiss beers or
Sure.
IPAs, and that we do have an art of making bigger beers. We have a nice barrel program here. We do Brewers Reserve beers that we have. We have our Black Friday beer. That,
Black Friday, your collaboration with Great Lakes Distillery.
yes, last year.
It was bourbon that was aged in.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. And I love your Black Friday beer too.
Okay.
So that was cool.
Yeah, we have like Russ said, a very successful barrel program. And byproduct of that program is we always have a little bit more than we need.
Sure.
So we kind of squirrel away a barrel or two in the warehouse. Inevitably, they'll be forgotten about. And they'll just be over there and, someone will go over there and say, what is all this stuff? What is this? What is that? Sometimes we blend them together. Sometimes we, bring them back and as the same brand. Sometimes we rebrand them, but we have a backlog of a lot of great beer that I guess it's a good thing because we do have things that we can just constantly bring out
Sure.
and celebrate. It's and this is one of those beers.
Yeah. I mean, and not many people do a Belgian quad. I've had a lot of Belgian doubles. That's delicious. And dangerous, of course, too.
Yeah.
It's almost like a wine experience.
Yeah. Very complex and very good.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, too. It's just made me think about it. Are there any laws in Wisconsin that restrict the sale of the quantity of glasses of something higher than a 10% beer? I didn't think so.
I don't think
No.
so.
Wisconsin's the wild. So I've lived in.
It's Wisconsin.
It's Wisconsin. No, I know, and that's how it should be. I can buy Everclear at Walmart. That's how it should be. Where I live and used to live, I was in Virginia for a few years, and now I'm in North Carolina. Very, very, very controlled states. There's a brewery that I talked to making great stuff, but he cannot sell more than 2 glasses of anything above 8% to a customer per day. I'm just curious if that was a thing here. I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, there are states out east where we can't ship them beer that's over a certain ABV.
Yeah, it's weird. Yet they can get liquor. I don't know.
Right.
Alcohol, the laws don't make too much sense. in a lot
No,
of
they
ways.
don't. And that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
Right.
Were there any on that thread though? When you first opened, was there any kind of any barriers or obstructions that you didn't think about and that you kind of just had to plow through because you started?
No, when we first started back in '87, was mostly just trying to get open, the equipment, the licensing, trying to get stuff done, and just trying to get it to go. It was just always a hurdle here, trying to get some extra equipment in. making the process better.
Yeah.
But
So the alcohol laws weren't an issue back then either, because Wisconsin's always been pretty good.
no, Tavern League's pretty strong in this state. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I love to hear it.
Yeah.
Never change Wisconsin. That's why I come back and visit. Well, I mean, change a little bit better. But no, well, I appreciate the craft of what you're doing here. You guys have an awesome operation, and I appreciate you having me here. Keep making great
Sure.
beer. I will walk out of here with probably 2 cases of River West because I need to. But I look forward to seeing what's coming down the pike from you guys. I look forward to the future. I'll always be a fan, always be a customer. And I always refer people who are in Milwaukee to come do the tour because it is, as you say, best tour in America.
Uh-huh.
It's one of my favorites just in general. But so thank you and cheers to what you do.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Appreciate it. We'll clink. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate a follow and share on social media, subscribe to our YouTube, and be sure to give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Everything you see and hear is out of pocket for us, including travel. If you support our mission of showcasing the amazing stories behind these small businesses, do me a favor and head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedconvos. Buy Me a Coffee is an awesome way to help creators like me with simple one-time donations or a monthly contribution. Every dime goes into giving these breweries, distilleries, and more some much-deserved limelight. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Cheers!